everybody or anybody from the public to get on the cover of our annual report. So this year, we have a lot of beautiful pictures. They're all in our report, by the way, scattered throughout. But this year's winner is Thomas Craig from Sturgeon Lake. Unfortunately, he said he couldn't come a couple days ago. But we get a cover printed and framed for him to give him, so I'll be dropping that off. So there you go. So next year, we're looking forward to all of your pictures. And now that Terry's retired, he can take a whole bunch and send, right, Terry? And thanks for that. Okay, without further ado, Vicki Hartog from Flink.
Thanks, and thanks for inviting me to speak today. I'm going to be talking about Plink, which is the name we've given to a program that we put together. Diane Trousey started an application last summer with the DFO to ask for funding to do work to prevent lake invasives it was in North Kawartha. So we had started out to look for names for this organization, something that was catchy. So we started out with Stop Invasives in North Kawartha, which would make an acronym of SINC, which we didn't think was the wisest name for an organization around boating. So then we came up with Plink, Prevent Lake Invasives in North Kawartha. So I wanted to just, I'll use the gun thing, right? To summarize a little bit of what we were looking for. Ed thought that we might be interested in a little bit of the application process, what worked, what didn't work, and so on. Especially if you're going to be applying for any grants, just some lessons learned and so on, and then a little bit about the program, okay? And I'll do it in 15 minutes. But I feel like I lost 5 minutes earlier, so 20. Okay. So it was to be a 3-year program where we rolled out cleaning stations, 6 cleaning stations, 2 a year, hiring students to staff those units, so that they could show people how to use the units and talk to people about preventing the spread of invasive species in North Kawartha. So a couple of the really great things, Diane was able to get support letters from 20 organizations. So Diane had this well in hand. She's fantastic. She would work very hard to get that kick-started, but she was looking for a project manager, so I said I would do that. And then we worked together on the remainder of the application. But getting those 20 support letters was fantastic. Oh, and okay. The outcome, you know, we sent it in the end of August and then waited, and I think now, it was the end of November when we heard from them. They said, great application, it met all the requirements, but we don't have enough money. So I'm going to now walk through a little bit about, you know, what we learned in putting that application together, and in hindsight, if we were to do it again, what we might do, or things that if you're looking for grant money, things that you might, you know, think about that what might work, what might not work, and so on, and what we think maybe we could have done a little differently. So first of all, the objective, which we tried to stay focused on the whole time, and what I would say is key, is remember what you're trying to do, because you can start going off and blue skying all kinds of things. So we wanted to increase the awareness of invasive species. And let me tell you, Diane was successful in doing that, because before this, I was like, yeah, invasive species, yeah, zebra mussels, we don't have them, I don't have to worry about anything. How wrong was I? I know more now about invasive species than I did before, and you know, that says a lot, because if it was just one conversation, one message, you know, spreading the word. So the lesson learned is we can all spread the word and we don't need funding to do it, but our goal was to spread the word. See if we could create a baseline, way harder than I ever thought. You know, it's like do a little test, send it in, have somebody come around, take a look at stuff. way harder than I thought it was going to be, but you know, that was one of our goals, and we still would have been able to do some of that. The big piece, or the big funding piece, was these cleaning stations. They're very expensive. We needed to staff them and so on, but that was one of the things that we were trying to do. And then communicate through community programs and so forth. So here I am. Okay, so what worked for us? It was a clear goal. It was succinct. By the time we sent it in, thank goodness they have word counts, because we netted it down, you know, simple to read. A clear budget as to what things were for. So if you're doing an application, you know, these are things that I would recommend that you do. Something that we also thought was great is it was creating jobs. So if you can do that in a program that you're doing, everyone's looking to that, although you might not be able to staff those jobs these days with so many people having a lot of choice. And then one of the huge things as we got into these cleaning units, the logistics around having that was huge, but Diane had already engaged North Kawartha to help support them, maintain them, storage, you know, a lot of other things. So having those partners along the way, you know, when we started, it was huge. What were the challenges? So, you know, we put the application in, we were all optimistic, and then we started putting the project plan together. And the project plan was 600 lines long. Now, I do pretty detailed project plans, and I used to work together. Full disclosure. But, you know, there were a lot of things to be done in that project plan, and I'm going to go through some of them in a minute, because they are things that, you know, it's easy to put something on paper, but not necessarily so easy to execute. But the other really big thing is some data was available that I think had we looked at that and kind of analyzed it, we might have asked for less money and had less aggressive goals, because as you saw, the budget was the problem with DFO. And so we were asking, and I'm bad at remembering numbers off the top of my head, but I think it was 350,000 or 250,000?
250,000.
Thank you. It was a huge budget, and when you look at what they've given to other organizations over the years, and what their goals were, none of them went 3 years and none of them asked for this much money. So in hindsight, if we'd asked for, you know, 2 years or 1 year and 2 units, we might have gotten somewhere. So if you have access to that kind of data about past behavior, predicting future behavior, I highly recommend that you do that. So what were we looking for? So some of the other challenges, so as we started working on the program, we said, okay, well, we're going to need signage. How hard can that be? Well, you have to know precisely where you want to put the sign so that you can precisely tell them the GPS coordinates. Life was easier before GPS coordinates, consider that. Precisely the location, precisely where the sign was going to be, precisely the size of it. So you had to get down to a lot of detail to make progress. Then you had to go to different organizations for approval. So whose property is it on? So we had to do a bunch of more of investigation that. So if it's in the lake, then it's MNR. If it's, you know, here, then it's the park. If it's here, it's the municipality and so on. So finding out who owns which thing, that was going to be work, a lot of work in itself. And then we started talking to the MNR about species management. And this is really important to anyone in this room, because if you're doing anything, if you're north of Highway 7, it needs a permit, end of story. Like, so you think it's my property, I can do it? No, you need a permit. And you need to worry about time frames, you know, when you could do things. And then we started talking about some things that had already been done, and it's just like, oh, you might actually owe a fine for having done that already. So you do want to enlighten yourself no matter what you're doing, whether you're asking for a grant, you know, for money. I would recommend to your organizations to look into any permitting required for anything before you get started, because you don't want to end up in trouble. Because we showed a picture of somewhere and they said, where is that? And then they started digging and said, who owns that? Because that's our property. We could come and take that away. And you're just going, oh, please don't. Like, you know, but then we thought, have we gotten someone into trouble? So look at permitting before you do anything. So the challenges with the stations, licensing, transportation, maintenance, and so on. The good thing is that North Kawartha had agreed to do some of that maintenance. And then the staffing, well, you know, when you're starting from scratch, you realize when you worked for that big company that did all this staffing that you didn't actually have to worry about liability and insurance and hiring policies and publishing job descriptions, so on. A whole bunch of magic happened behind the scenes. Now, fortunately, North Kawartha was going to help us with that and do those job descriptions. So every single piece, you know, was like an entire organization doing that. And then the communications. Well, I've talked about branding. So we are Plink, Prevent Lake Invasives in North Kawartha. There are 2 eyes there because we're watching you with both eyes. And not sync, because we don't want that to happen. And then getting out to the audience. Fortunately, through this organization, and I'm going to have to go to the next slide because I can't remember what's on it. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. Fortunately, this is an amazing community who I knew no one in, well, other than Ed, no one in this room a year ago. And I want to acknowledge Doug Wellman, who is sponsoring and advocating for Plink and provide the funding for some of the signage and so on. Otherwise, that would have, you know, we would have had to go find money right away, maybe from our own pockets. And Doug has an enormous group of people who are from the lakes in North Kawartha. So he's introduced me to Deborah, and where are you? Oh my gosh, I'm so bad. Miss Patty. And even through looking at the organization and starting to plan for the work that we had to do, I met with Jeff, because I'm not a cold call person at all, but it was just like, you gotta call Jeff. Jeff is the easiest person to talk to in the world. I am not trying to be an invasive species expert, but I am trying to connect people to invasive species experts, so someone like Jeff. So that whole dating analogy, it's fantastic, because it's connecting lakes and lake organizations to people like Jeff and Mackenzie and you know, Kaylee from the university, Trent. So people who know the facts, because I'm not trying to be an expert and I never will be trying to be an expert, but what I'm trying to do is bring people together to talk about this. And so, you know, I've already walked through that already, so we'll go to the next slide because I don't know how much time I have. Get support from your community. I've even been so bold as to put some of the contact information, because these names, these people were very helpful to us, even as we were working through the details with or without the funding. NORCLA, KLSA, and then become familiar with the laws and regulations and reuse that information. So you'll see on the plink.ca website, I don't say a lot about invasive species, and I don't say a lot about, you know, the clean, drain, dry, but I point you to those organizations. Let them be the experts, and we'll just, you know, be the conduit to getting to them. Okay, so where are we now? How many minutes do I have? 5? Okay, where are we now? I'm just going to go through this quickly. So we are doing something. This is the same slide. The only thing we're not doing is getting those clean, drain, dry units. But we are doing something in each of those areas. So same message, preventing the spread, engaging with lake community organizations. So we're going to be going to AGMs. I'm going to go to the next slide because I think they have the information there. I've talked about that already, so we can go next. Yeah. And we've got this working group, which have some of the people I've mentioned, and this is fantastic because we meet about once a month, and I say, this is what I've worked on so far, give me your feedback, any thoughts, and so on. I've got Jeff, your name there now, our latest edition. And it's just a lot of like-minded people who have thoughts and ideas and feedback and, you know, volunteer. And so, where are we going to be? So I'm here today. We've also created a public meeting on June 8th where we're going to talk about lake health. There's, I have posters at the back. If you are part of an organization and you think you have members in your lake or in your community that would like to attend, please take one of the posters, make it available. Or you can go to the plink.ca website, and on the front page, the home page, there's the Clean Drain Dry poster that you see there, and the June 8th meeting there. And so take that, spread it far and wide. I've come to terms with the fact that I probably need a Facebook page for this, and so I'm going to be creating that. There won't be a lot going on there, but it will enable people to easily share that information.
Is that online only, or that meeting, June 8th?
No, it's at the North, thanks for asking. It's at the North Kawartha Community Center. It's not online, it's in person. You get to come up, see the new grocery store. Because aren't we all glad that that's there now? And then, so one of the big questions, and I wanted to put this in this deck, we've got a small deck that people can present for themselves at their AGMs or meetings and so on. But yeah, on June 8th, so we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about that for a second. June 8th will be lake health, so a little bit broader. And Doug is going to be talking about shorelines and natural shorelines there. And then Jeff is going to do his fantastic spiel about invasive species and the Clean Drain Dry program. So the 5-minute one was fantastic for our AGM. And the longer one is fantastic for the afternoon. So if you want to see Jeff's longer presentation, especially if you're a water steward, which many are, or you've got new water stewards that you're trying to train, or people who you'd like to have volunteer as water stewards, then please come. It's open. There's no charge. Jeff's bringing donuts and coffee to the meeting. So, yeah. Okay. So, okay. Almost done. Does this apply to me? If you do anything on the water with the watercraft, it applies to you no matter what kind of watercraft it is. Okay. What can you do? All kinds of things. We've talked about them. This presentation is going to be available on your website. We've got all kinds of communication. Ways that you can see is you can subscribe. So when we send something out, you can get notified of it. You can go on the website. One of the big things on our website is all of the resources, because when I first started looking around, it's like, who's who in the zoo? And, you know, where do I find this, and why do these exist, and what do they do, and so on. So a lot of links with information to them. And just an acknowledgement of all the support that the program got means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm going to reserve questions to go and see if you can get the back table with the blue tablecloth together with Jeff. They're sharing a table there, so we'll just move right on. I guess we have Terry Reese. Who doesn't know Terry Reese? Yeah, I figured that. You're a popular guy, Terry. Come on up, and we're happy to have you speak here today in your retirement. I think semi-retirement, but over to you.
Thanks. Just because they know me doesn't mean I'm popular. I'm just going to point that out. Thank you. I don't have any slides. Ed said don't bring slides, and then I realized that's how I've gotten away with this over the years, is to use the pictures and you can ooh and ah at them, and so I have no pictures. So I also heard 50 minutes, that's why I wrote this big script. So you'll know, thanks for having me, by the way, and encouraging me to come, because this group's really been, and I'm here to help is how I like to always introduce myself to biologists. But I think there's an economic argument that compels some people, but really we're all here, and people live around the water because they love the water, and they love, I was talking to Guy earlier about, what the real buzz he gets about doing this stuff is when he's got his grandkids involved, and that's, I've got kids and maybe grandkids at some point. They're not making any promises, but that's the thing that sticks in my mind. My father bought the place that I now own on Cashabog Lake. My kids have grown up there. The cousins all, there's a cousins weekend coming, which I'm not invited to in August. I can't imagine what a mess that's going to be, but because they're all in their 20s now. But I mean, that's a place that's, they all have that same passion for the place that I've had. I want to mention a couple other people over the years. I did want to mention Kathleen McKenzie, because she worked at FOCA part-time when I started volunteering. I was volunteering at FOCA for many years as well. She was always a great inspiration and obviously a main leader here. And I mentioned Barb. Ted Spence is, we collectively drag each other into various things, but always good to, it's about, like, the people stuff really is what inspires you, because you have a spark of an idea and you sort of want to bounce it off somebody, or do you know anyone that does this, or what about this idea, and I always think that's awesome. Doug Wellman's somehow keeps coming. One of our gateway drugs was the Stewardship Council that I was involved with in Peterborough, and Doug's is? Well, oh, so you've actually quit something. Good for you. And that was the Bancroft Stewardship Council, where Doug was involved for many years. We worked on a Lakeland conference. We did it here a number of years, and in Apsley, and in Halliburton, and in Peterborough, I think maybe originally. Anyways, another opportunity to get people in a room to talk about this stuff. I'm really happy to see all of you people, because we obviously have shared interests and passion, friends and colleagues over the years, but it's our challenge is to get more people in the fold here, because you're all 20 years older than 20 years ago when we were talking, standing here. Still young, but not as young. Ralph Ingleton was another person I wanted to mention. Ralph was just a guy that I knew for years as a volunteer. He obviously was, Ralph and Carol owned a wonderful patch of property that's, it was a big part of the Kawartha Land Trust, a big part of inspiring the science that's now going on with Paul Frost in North Kawartha around broad monitoring across the lakes. And just another person that just had a passion and commitment and enduring kind of, in really tangible ways of doing things, encouraging people. We got him on TV talking about shorelines. He donated his land, he donated his money, he badgered other people to do so. We did art and sold it to raise money. This is just, we can't all aspire to be quite as great as Ralph was, but everyone who does their part as part of the puzzle. So I think a lot of this, the Lake Park program I just mentioned again, that's a program that's gone on for so long. It's a partnership with the Ministry of Environment. The program's funded until March of next year, so the mission at FOCA now with my upgraded successor, Leslie Lavender, who please reach out to her. She's the new boss at FOCA. So the challenge is to make sure the ministry understands that long-term science is important, and the 800 volunteers that do this do it out of the goodness of their heart, but they expect the province to do their part and fund it the little bit that they do. So we're fortunate to have Gavin, who's been a great addition to the team, who's out of the Dorset Research Centre, the centre that's kind of fallen into disrepair because I'm not sure the government knows science is important. So again, as a non-scientist, that I've learned from so many experts and just passionate volunteers, experts in non, because like Vicky, you get to the stuff and you learn a little bit and then then you're hooked and then you're kind of deep into it, right? So it happens. But I think the one part of the Lake Park program, again, is that long-term data set that's used and cited so that you can't replicate, and that without volunteers it doesn't work. And likewise with the KLSA stuff. The government can't do that. So relying on those volunteers, getting all that data is very important, but there's always two parts of it. It's collecting and managing all that data, which is so vital, but the other big part was about the fostering stewardship and stuff. So that's where I've spent a lot of my sort of headspace and my time and energy, is just about how do we you do science so people understand what's going on, like what's happening on your lakes. You'd like get them to understand it, because then they can appreciate it more, and understand what's the comings and goings, and then hopefully that drives them to act. So again, it's like the gateway to being a steward is kind of first getting to understand, communicating it effectively, because scientists, frankly, sorry to all you scientists out there who I love dearly, but it's a real skill to take that deep knowledge and translate that into smaller words that people can actually know what to do with. So John Small, one of the brightest limnologists in the country, spoken to folk a bunch of times, says, you vote with your actions on the landscape, you vote with your dollars and your consumer choices, and you vote at the ballot box. So if you don't like the decisions that are being made by this government, get a new one. So that's one of his things. So I've spent a lot of time in non-watery stuff, but it's all kind of about water. So I've moderated all these all candidates meetings, municipal, provincial, and federal, trying to just make sure that the environment's in the conversation, and letting politicians and the leaders spit it out. Let's hear what your ideas are, and informing them, because I always say, if you're, God bless the people crazy enough to be municipal politicians, there's a number of you here, and to Carol Armstrong, who's the deputy mayor, who's now on the FOCA board, which is awesome, because that's an important lens, and so much happens at the municipal level. But I mean, these people need your advice and help. I'm going to go out on a limb to say, because they've got a big mandate, they've got all kinds of liabilities and obligations, and not much discretion, and a lot of hard work to do to manage our community's land use planning and safety and health, employees, roads, where most of your money goes, helping them to understand how the environment is important to you as a constituent, and how it should be on the agenda is really important. So, not suggesting you always get your way, but if you don't show up to the budget meeting and you don't show up when they ask questions, that's a shame on us, kind of thing, for not doing something. Hi. Go ahead. So I already wrote a bunch of stuff in this. Thank you, Sheila, for chasing me about that, and for offering me a bit of ink in the latest guide. I was going through my well-worn 20th anniversary edition, and remembering all the important questions that KLSA has asked over the years about geese and shorelines, of course, all the stuff you've done about the wastewater plants all over the system, and realizing that those important questions are all. Some of us don't even know that they're important until you start thinking about it and asking questions of the experts, and then trying to figure out what we can do about it. I was talking about what compels people. So I was always trying to figure out, how do you get people that aren't just the real tree huggers, and I say that in the most endearing way for all of us that like the environment. I undertook a study with through a York University program that had a terrible acronym that I can't remember, but this Christian Koldea, a master's student, wrote a thing about, did a hedonic study of economics, and that basically tried to attach water quality to property values. Because in my head, in all of our heads, we're thinking, well, a crappy lake isn't as desirable than a really nice lake. But it's really curious to try and figure out what is a clean lake. Is a super acidic, clear, devoid of life lake the one we're after? Because if you use water clarity, like some completely desolate lake beside a smelter in Inco or in Sudbury, is that what we're after? So it's tricky to make those connections. So there's lots of studies about where blue-green algae blooms, for instance, or where there's been public health issues where that's been tied to lower property values. But there's so much noise in the system, and the market's gone so wacky now with all the people that have retired or inherited things and are buying places that are $1 million. It's a $650,000 cottage on our island. Anyway, I don't get it. So it's hard to connect that, but there's something there that's about higher environmental values, which is again tricky to define, and how that translates to property values, which for some people is an important thing. I personally pay property taxes based on my property values, and I may have to transfer my property soon to my kids, so I'm mortified by how much they think my cottage is worth. But still, there's possibly that connection that some people think going between having a higher environmental values, which translates into a better environmental, economic value, sorry. So you're going to give me the 1 minute in a second here. There is, I was just at a thing yesterday, again, there's so many good scientists, citizen science, and retirees that just can't let go, thank goodness. I was just on the Scope Watersheds conference about algae yesterday, where they were talking about how we just don't have the type of data that we need for one particularly vexing thing, which is blue-green algae blooms appearing in low nutrient lakes. Like if you look at total phosphorus, Gavin will correct me when I'm wrong. If you look at total phosphorus, which is such an important thing to measure, it's not really spiking most places. It's not declining in the majority of Ontario's lakes, and yet we're getting blue-green algae blooms in places that they oughtn't to be. So it's about, Paul Frost and Maggie Xenopoulos at Trent, I think have got a NSERC proposal in the works where they're going to try and do some stuff around speciation and eDNA and figuring out what kinds of bioavailable phosphorus are really triggering this kind of stuff. So again, questions that beget more questions, which as non-scientists, there's no answer there. But I spoke at a graduate conference at Trent, or at Queen's a few years ago with all these genius PhD and postdoc people. So I had no business talking to them, but my talk, which I thought was really funny, but sometimes I think I'm a lot funnier than I am, was science, so what? So they were a little suspicious of the whole thing, but I was like, well, my line was, people seem to have a lot of important information. I'm glad to see that, but does anyone else know about it? Like, you got to tell people about it. If there's important information, and that's why I think KLSA does such a great job of asking the important, geeky questions. But,
you want the hook there to add?
But, so doing this is such an important role that KLSA does. One of the other things I was involved with was the Shorelands for Planning. These guys, this is a project of the Watersheds Canada folks. I was on their committee. There's all kinds of stuff online about why shorelines are important and how to make those connections to municipal planning. So look at that. I have some gainful employment currently with the Invasive Species Center. There is a frag fund that's out and open until next Thursday. So get your applications in. There's all the information online at the Invasive Species Center. Or contact me if you want more information. And sure, I had a really excellent outro here, but I think you're just going to hook me. Yeah, so keep monitoring, keep watching, be diligent with our actions, and talk about it. I mean, that's Catherine Hayhoe's thing, if you don't follow her in her climate stuff, is that if you're not talking to people, then it's not. And there's the hook. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry, very much for coming today and speaking to everybody in the room here. It is hard to relate 30 years of experiences in 15 minutes, I know, but thanks for all the information that you gave us. And you're sticking around. We have the hall till 1 o'clock, so if you want to mill around later on, Terry will be around. You can talk to him. Is there one or two maybe general questions for Terry? Like, what the heck are you doing now in your retirement, or something like that? Anybody? Otherwise, you can grab Terry and mill around. I have.
Q&A used to be the funnest part of the folk at AGM, so my staff said, let's let 100 people ask anything.
Barbara, second. I saw this lady first here. Yeah.
Thank you for your talk, very informative. Have you ever had a program to address the new people coming on the lake and to educate our new people? Because that's really where this all starts and goes now.
Right.
And we're all retrospective. Who's on the lake now? Catch them when they're coming.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent point. And we do it, there's a welcome guide that folks has got actually, which is kind of like, here's your lake, that's just a template that's like, whether it's just practice, cultural practices, recycling, bylaws, where you can learn about shoreline bylaws, why it's important, here's the science. So that's a starter, which can be used by local lake associations. Because you're right, the people we know are already in the conversation, but it's people that we don't know that are new are hard to get at. And there's a lot of them because there's been this huge intergenerational transfer of property. People are selling, take advantage of the high values. People are older and want to get out of their property. I mean, most of this area, some of it's 100 years plus years old, a lot of this land in this part of the world was developed in the 40s, 50s, and 60s as the province wanted to get everyone out on the landscape. So those people are now 70, 80, 90 years old. So you can imagine how much intergenerational or how much properties are changing hands. So I always look around and see, since I'm a long time, I would say, resident, that there's a combination of bad old practices and bad new practices. I mean, some of the stuff we used to do wasn't all that hot either. Most of the places where we built, we wouldn't be allowed to do it today, for instance. But we know a lot now, and getting at the new people to bring them into the fold. And I think there's a lot of enthusiasm. Someone who's invested $500,000 or $1 million in a property, they're like pretty attached now. Like they're highly, should be highly motivated to protect what their investment is. Yeah, great question and observation. There's so many new people.
I think the resource you mentioned, the new homeowners or cottagers guide and anything else that you might want is up on your website or available, sorry, not anymore. Yeah. Is up on Carol's website, the FOCA website, or call them, and I'm sure you can get a hold of those copies. One more question from Barb.
While you were at FOCA, you contacted Landscape Ontario about reducing salt use. What do you see as the forecast for whether they are able to do anything to make people more aware of exactly how to reduce salt? Because it's really a problem.
Yeah. Could you think of a harder question, Barb? Yeah, salty lakes are a problem for sure. And as we urbanize and drive more, and climate change isn't going to help because we're going to get wetter winters, we're going to get a lot more 0 days, there's going to be a lot more salt used, and that's a combination of the public utilities managing road maintenance, which is usually the top thing that the municipality spends their money on, and not getting sued and keeping the public safe. So there's a whole smart about salt thing going on within the formal roads community through MTO and that sort of thing. They're slow to the game. It's the cheapest, easiest, simplest way to de-ice. So they're stuck on that. I think there's some work ongoing there. The Landscape Ontario stuff, which has got an interesting wrinkle that's really long, and Ed's going to be mad if I talk the whole thing, but they're all about the private contractors who maintain our private roads. So we think that something like 20% of the people that live on the water, full or part-time, get there on some private road. So you can't find a contractor anymore because they've all bailed out because of liability. Part of the liability is all the slip and fall stuff. Part of the reason there's slip and fall is because it's icy in the winter, go figure. So there's some reforms happening. The Norm Miller thing, which limits how long you can make a claim against someone for slipping and falling. That's not yet proven to do anything. We've met with Doug Downey, the Attorney General, because the concept was we wanted to put a limit on the liability. So if someone's done due diligence, if they follow it's a New Hampshire model, which is the Snow Pro program. Sorry. But there's a regime there where if they can demonstrate they've done the training, they followed the practice, that means they don't have to oversalt. Because the average contractor is saying it's a lot cheaper for me to go once to a property, whether that's the parking lot out here, the private road, any of these roads that are around water that are privately maintained, or by a contractor. So they know that if they do a reasonable amount of salt application, if they need to do it at all, that they have a shield from liability. So they've been very slow, the province, to put that in place. I think that still has some promise, but it is extremely tricky. Like, I mean, there's saltwater species living in the Humber and stuff, right? Because, and I'm sure Scugog's, got a lot of urban area developing now, and it's getting worse. It's a tricky one. Salt's a problem, and these things are all, as you know, they're a combination of things: climate change, invasive species.
And soon we're going to see sharks coming up the St. Lawrence River, right? Vicky, come on up, please. Just an acknowledgement and a thank you to you both for taking the time to speak to our people. So, Vicky, just from my favorite place, the winery. Terry, for you as well.
Lovely, thank you so much.
And again, thank you all. Terry is sticking around. I'm going to just keep you for another few more minutes. Bob, if you can do your magic. Thank you very much, Terry. Appreciate it. They'll be around. Our exhibitors will stay around for a little while longer afterwards if you haven't seen them already. Drake tosses for aquatic plant identification, and seki dish at the bottom there, and move on. More? Any more? Yep, thank you again, thank you again. I think we've heard a few people say to our volunteers, we wouldn't be able to do all the things we do without our volunteers and our supporters. So thank you in all the languages. How to get a hold of us? I want to point out that we are working, we're in the works of updating our website. It'll have a new name. It'll be on a new domain, a new hosting service. So it's under construction now, but you can go to it now, klsa.ca. No www in front of it, as my web guy told me. And you get to what we have. It'll also have a button to redirect you to our current and older website if there's anything that you're looking for that isn't on the new one. So that's up and coming, and we hope to have it finished this summer, right? Your input. So as you see, we've done things a little bit differently today for our spring public meeting. I invited all these wonderful organizations to come and participate and exhibit and talk to you folks. And that was based on because we've been hearing, and it's very true, we do the same thing year after year. We test for E. coli, LPP, partner program, you know, and our invasive species stuff, our shoreline plantings. So, like, same old story. So I thought, okay, let's get some interest going with these exhibitors. So that was based on the feedback that we got from previous meetings. So I'm looking for more, and also for any projects that you might think are of value besides what we do. Again, pick up our lake water quality report, see what we do. You've heard about it today. You can send us an email at our email address. You can call us directly. We've got a little info cards in the back there, business-sized cards on how to get a hold of us and reach us. And if you have any thoughts now, then let me know after we sort of turn on the lights again. Bob is running to the lights. And any other comments and questions before we kind of let you go? The exhibitors will be around for a while still. Thank you again for spending the morning with us. Really, really appreciate it. Any quick general questions, comments? Thank you, ladies.